Hey, what's going on guys, welcome to this video. Now this video is going to be a bit different from all my other videos, guides and theories and road to seismics, mainly because it's going to be more of information on how I actually got to where I am right now in the PVMing style in RuneScape. I would consider myself a high level PVMer, not a good one at it. It's just that I go to high level bosses like Virago and KK and Rots quite frequently, and I can do them, I believe, quite well, not perfectly, nowhere near perfect. I'm no amazing PVMer, but I can get kills at those kinds of bosses. So I consider myself someone who goes to high level PVM bosses, and I want to share with you guys how I managed to get there and what I did, and how you guys can do that if you are like mid to high level right now, but you still want to get into these high level bosses like Virago and Rots. And that is what I find really fun on RuneScape, which is what you can tell with the videos I'm making nowadays. They're all oriented around PVMing, because that's what I find fun in RuneScape. And as soon as you get to the high level RuneScape, if you make a couple of friends and you're usually on TeamSpeak or Skype, it's a whole lot of fun. I definitely recommend it. So in this video I'm going to quickly, not really quickly, it's probably going to be quite long, I'm going to be explaining how I got to where I am and the steps you guys can take to get to where I am right now, which is killing Virago and Rots in teams frequently, having loads of high level PVMing friends, and generally having a good time on RS. So stay tuned. So getting into it, back when I first started to go hard in PVM, I actually decided that I want to become a PVMer, and I wasn't enjoying skilling a lot, which was, I believe, a year and a half ago. Back then, actually almost 2 years ago, back then the main way to get into PVMing and solo PVMing, duo PVMing, that kind of stuff, the main way to learn on how to get used to using brews and restores and using familiars, what familiars to use, what gear to take, the main way to do that was to go to God War's dungeon. I believe the easiest was Bandos and the hardest was Saradomin, but Armadillo used to have some of the best drops. Like, that's why everyone used to go to Armadillo. Bandos was quite packed mainly because of how easy it was, so the drops weren't as expensive, but they were still pretty nice. I think when I first started PVMing really hardcore and going for the drops, when I was a noob with like a Spirit Terror Bird and upgraded to a War Tortoise, that's when chest plates were 20 mil and tassets were 20 mil each. And back then money had quite a lot more value, if you understand what I mean. Right now 100 mil is what everyone's got, whereas back then having 100 mil would take ages to get, and it could buy you some amazing gear. Like an Armadillo Godsword at one point was 120 mil for the hilt alone, and that took ages to save up. People went to Armadillo and camped there for weeks and weeks just to get that one drop. That's how much money was worth. But that's the kind of way that I started getting into PVM. I started off with duo bandos with a couple of friends, and we were all around the same level. Now, that's the thing you've got to understand with getting into PVMing, that the best way to do it, this is right off from the start, I'm going to explain it to you. The best way to do it is to go with people at your level and learn together. That's where you'll have the most fun. You can go with people that are a lot higher level than you, but most of the time they will get annoyed if you are new and you are learning, unless they're really patient, and you can probably learn quicker with them. But I believe, it's my personal opinion, that you get the most fun out of going with people that are at your level, making friends with them, and then just having a good time. And slowly over time you'll understand what to do with your gear and what gear to take and how to kill the boss, any mechanics that you have to know, all that kind of stuff. That's the best way, in my opinion, to go about it. But nowadays, obviously, God War's Dungeon and the whole PVMing scape has changed completely into where God War's Dungeon isn't really the best place to go if you want to learn how to do these different combat mechanics with the bosses like Virago and Rots, which are so mechanic heavy, where you have to understand everything that's going on and react accordingly. In my opinion, the best boss for mid to high level or even lower level players to go to nowadays is actually QBD, Queen Black Dragon, mainly because the boss isn't extremely tough. Even if you're like a mid-level player, you can get kills. Obviously they won't be really fast, but you can get kills. And the way it introduces you to some mechanics like the firewalls and the fire breath and the tortured souls, all that kind of stuff, if you master QBD, which doesn't really take that long, I've actually got a guide for it, I'll put a link on the screen somewhere in the annotation. QBD is really quite easy to master, and as soon as you've mastered it, it's a lot easier to go about doing other bosses like Nex and Rots and Virago, because you already understand that mechanics work and you have to react to them accordingly, eating food in between mechanics, all that kind of good stuff, life points, looking at life points, and that's what QBD I think does so well. That's what I really like about QBD. Also, it's amazing to go to if you are a mid-level player, mainly because it's really consistent money. I mean, if you're a mid-level player, let's say you average about 3.5 to 4 minute kills, which is pushing it a bit. I mean, you can quite easily get up to like 2 minute kills if you're quite high level, but mid-level players, let's round it up to 4 minutes, which is quite long. Even then, you can still be making 2 to 3, even 4 mil an hour from the drops at QBD. Even though the main drops, which are the royal frame pieces, are worth absolutely nothing, it's the normal drops that make up most of QBD's money, and it's probably going to stay that way because the hides are being used in crafting and the bones being used in prayer. So QBD is really awesome for you guys to go, for you mid-level players to go and learn. I mean, you're going to have to do it alone, which I think is a good thing for learning, because then you understand everything yourself. You work as part of, you can do that alone, or you can work as part of a team. Whereas if QBD was a group-only boss, then if you went alone, you'd probably struggle a bit. That's what I really like about QBD. And as soon as you mastered QBD, the next boss I'd say go to is a toss-up between either Nex or Araxo, mainly because Araxo is either solo or duo, and I'd say it is a lot harder than when you go to team Nex. Grouping Nex with 3 or 4 people is a lot easier than soloing or duoing Araxo. I think solo and duo Araxo are equally as hard, because the duo Araxo, all the abilities scale up, whereas that doesn't happen with Nex. She's the same tough, same difficulty with 1 person or with 10 people. So going to Nex is a really good thing, I'd say. If you've got a group of friends and you want to all go that at your level, you want to learn to do Nex, I'd say definitely go for it. And then like designate roles for Nex, there's really only 2 roles. There's DPS and tank. I'd say start off as a DPS if you're first learning, and then slowly go into tanking, because once you can tank Nex, then you're actually, I'd say, pretty well set up to get into high level PVMing, because there's quite a lot of things the tank has to do. I've actually got a guide on that on my channel as well. I'll probably throw up an annotation somewhere. A tank actually has to focus on quite a lot of things, its own life points as well as Nex's life points, and do things before certain abilities happen at Nex, which is really quite interesting, and it's a lot of fun to learn. I can tell you myself, I actually learned to tank Nex with 3 of my friends. And while I was doing it, it was probably some of the most fun I've had on RuneScape. We went in 3 and 4 man teams, and they were already good at DPSing. One of them already knew how to tank, and he was just giving me tips. But seriously, you don't even need that. You just need to look at a couple of YouTube videos. There's videos on everything, every boss, every role right now on YouTube somewhere. So you can just go ahead, look at those, take a couple of pointers, and then go for a couple of trips. The first couple of kills obviously are going to be difficult, especially if you're first learning to tank. You will fail a couple of kills. But if you're going with friends who are just having a laugh with you, you're on Skype or TeamSpeak, then it can be quite a lot of fun, even if you are dying and losing kills. And then as soon as you start mastering it, you learn new things and little tips and tricks as you go along. Like for me, I'm still learning things about tanking Nex, even though I've been doing it for so long. I'd say about a year now I've been tanking Nex, and I'm still learning little things I can do to help make the kill a bit smoother and a bit faster. So I'd definitely say go ahead and learn to tank Nex, because DPSing Nex really isn't difficult at all. I'd say it's only really the blood phase that you have to focus on, but for the tank they've got to worry about every single phase and do different things for each phase. So that's really cool. And once you've done that, go ahead and do some Araxo. I'd say the best way to learn Araxo is actually starting to range Araxo, because when you're in melee distance, some of the special abilities can actually hurt you, whereas when you're standing far away in range, there is a possibility that if you time things right, you won't get hit by those abilities. I've also got an Araxo guide on my channel, which is quite in depth. You can go ahead and check that out and just go and have fun with Araxo. If you want to go duo, you can go ahead, but it is still going to be difficult. It's going to be probably the same difficulty, or I'd say even harder than soloing Araxo. The kill is a bit quicker, but it's a lot easier to get KO'd, especially on phase 4. Araxo is so much fun, you don't understand. Like, I've done over 200 kills of Araxo, which I know is nothing compared to some people, but I'd say I'm pretty good at Araxo. I mean, I can get under 10-minute kills quite consistently, and even still, I go to Araxo almost every day, 4 to 5 kills, and I enjoy the hell out of it. I've streamed it quite a bit, and Araxo is amazing to do. It's got so many mechanics, and it's got probably less mechanics than Nex, but it's a lot easier to get KO'd by Araxo because the mechanics are a lot more frequent. So that's why I'd say you go to Nex first, learn to tank, because you can take your time there and you can still get the kill, whereas with Araxo you've got to be on point, otherwise you will get KO'd quite easily, especially if you're in melee distance, which is how most people get for the faster kills. That's what I do nowadays. I solo Araxo with melee. Now we're going to get into the bread and butter, why most people get into PVMing. is to get to the really high level bosses like Virago and Rots, which I'd say are the most fun, especially if you've learned how to do them properly. Now Virago and Rots, as soon as you've got like the level and requirements and gear requirements that you think are needed, I'd say at least tier 90s like Noxious Staff is required. Noxious Staff is really good to go Virago and Rots because of how amazing mage DPS is nowadays, and you definitely lead like 99 mage and at least 90 defense, but I'd say go for max combat and go for some really nice tier 90 gear in all combat styles, and you're set for high level PVMing like Virago and Rots. Now the way I learned it is what I'd recommend for people who have never done it before. Now there are like loads of mass FCs for Virago and there's teaching Rots, but when I went to mass FCs for Virago, I really didn't get the feel of it, how it would be in a smaller team. When you go to a mass FC in Virago, you just really don't know what's going on. It's so crowded. But the way I'd recommend it is exactly what I did. I went to the forums and I made a post saying that I wanted to learn Virago. I'd never done it before, and people who were like-minded, people who were learning Virago could message me in game, join my friends chat, and I said things like most people have the problem that they can't get into teams because the requirements are so high. Like for most pro Virago teams, you need to have a certain amount of Virago kills, which some people have 0 and they can't get into those kind of teams even though they've got all the gear and they want to learn. So I'd say just do what I did and make a forum post advertising saying that I want to learn Virago. To anyone else that wants to learn, come ahead and join me. We'll designate roles in my friends chat and we'll go on TeamSpeak or Skype and we'll just have a good time. That's exactly what I did, and the team that I actually first learned to Virago with is the team that I still go with now, and it's so much fun. You guys don't even understand. That first day of Virago, we hardly got any kills. It took us, I think, over 3.5 hours to get our first successful kill, and then after that we failed loads more, even though we had somebody who was pretty good at Virago on the team. The rest of us had no clue, but it was absolutely hilarious. I went as a bomb tank, and I'd say if you want to actually go into big teams or these pro teams, then the way you're going to get in is by learning the difficult roles like bomb tank and base tank, which is why I said learn to tank next as well, because people always want tank for next because it's a lot more difficult than DPSing. So if you know how to tank next, it'll be easier to get into a team and it's quite a bit more enjoyable. I find DPS next quite boring because of how easy it is. So for Virago, I went and I learned to bomb tank, and we failed so many kills. It was absolutely horrendous, but it was the most fun I'd say I've ever had on RuneScape, those 2 days of learning to Virago. So here we are, 112 Virago kills later and 241 Rise of the Six kills later. And I didn't actually mention this, but the way I started to do Rise of the Six was exactly the same way I started to do Virago. In fact, the same people that I went to Virago with, that team that I went to Virago with, made good friends with over TeamSpeak, I took those same people and we went to Rise of the Six and we learned how to do it together. And now I've got almost 250 kills there, and I believe we are pretty good at Rise of the Six and Virago. I still haven't learned how to do a couple of roles, actually one role which is a base tank of Virago, but that will come in time. I really enjoy Virago and Rise of the Six, two probably my favorite bosses, along with Nex, Soloing and Araxo. So yeah guys, that's really it for this video. I hope this helped you guys out on how to start up with high level PVMing. As I said before, I'll just quickly recap. You want to start off with QBD, learn that kind of stuff, and then move on to Nex in a team, and then if you can get to tank Nex, and then go on to Araxo. And after that, hopefully you can get a couple of people who are on your level to take you to Virago and Rise of the Six, make friends with them, learn together, and before you know it, you're at my level where I can do almost any boss in the game with some friends, and it's a whole load of fun. As usual, if you didn't find this enjoyable, be sure to comment, rate and subscribe. Any video ideas that you want me to make, I'll definitely make them. Just put them down in the comments. I look forward to reading them. I look forward to the feedback. Hope you have a great day. Peace out.